didn't necessarily know that J.J. McCarthy was going to be there at the start of the process. How do you think they did?
I'm going to give him a B+ just because of what you laid out. Like, this is a situation where even on draft day, I'm sitting there on the desk trying to figure out, okay, are they going to have to move up to go get JJ? I really don't feel like he's the guy you move up for. Then you lose that 17th overall pick. But the way that they did it, getting JJ and Dallas Turner, I mean, that's really good. I think that now you have a chance to obviously add something to both sides in the first round, and you can make this team that was already a really good football team coached really well. Kevin O'Connell, I love him. I think that, the pairing with JJ going with Kevin, as we've talked about, is tremendous. So this is a really solid draft. The only reason that they can't have an A is because they didn't really have a second or third round pick. That was their fault. They have later picks, but I think what they got at the beginning without having to go up to get JJ, that's a solid B+ for me.
I'm going to A- in this situation for kind of the same reason as you said, only moving up one spot to get the quarterback that I think we all kind of knew that they were coveting J.J. McCarthy. So the fact that they were able to get that just one measly spot, as opposed to some of these scenarios where you were hearing like potential crazy draft, like future equity, that is great. And then, of course, addressing one of the top defensive players in the entire draft. Later on, you're right, they didn't have a ton of picks overall in the draft, which is why they can't get the full A. But the ones that they had, they made the most of. And I love the pairing of JJ with his coach, Kevin O'Connell. That's going to make for some magic as soon as they're ready to put him on the field.
The Vikings tried to trade up to number 3. They tried to trade to number 2. They would have tried to trade to number 1, except they were pretty confident the Bears weren't trading that pick and Caleb Williams within the division. All the external speculation from us and from fans was, well, then do the Vikings have to trade up to 4 to ensure they get J.J. McCarthy, or trade to 5, get ahead of the Giants? They took, you have to call it, at least a little bit of a gamble here that J.J. McCarthy was not going to be the Giants guy at number 6. They did eventually trade up one spot for a fairly small amount of compensation just to ensure that nobody, namely the Broncos or the Raiders, traded in front of them. Keeping that second first-round pick, as David said, was huge for the Vikings. Now, they did have to give up future assets to move initially from the second round into the first with Houston, and then even more assets to go and get Dallas Turner. When you've got guys at the premium positions, talking about quarterback, pass rusher, you make sure when you have those opportunities, you get within striking distance, they go and get them. They lost Danielle Hunter in this offseason, which was a big deal. They paid Jonathan Grenard in free agency. Now they bring in Dallas Turner, and they hope in Brian Flores' defense that balance, those two pass rushers, are going to make the impact and more that they got from Danielle Hunter.
Let's wrap it up, David, with the Green Bay Packers.
Green Bay Packers, they took a trip to Costco. They got 10 players, right? So I'm going to give them an A because they went out, they got a tackle early, and then they just got a bunch of stuff, right? So you got some young players in that team that played really well, just went down to Dallas, did their thing in the playoffs, and they got a lot of energy. So they put a lot of good components together. The nice part about the Green Bay Packers is they don't have a ton of holes, right? So you add to the offensive line, which I like. You probably could have done a little bit more, but I think that when you look at it, you add on defense. I think that's a good solid draft for them. And just like I said, they got 10 players. So that's going to be fun in the offseason and going into training camp, watching these young guys produce.
I'm going with B+ on this one because sometimes when you've got a lot of versatility and it feels like you're selecting for versatility, does it mean that you have immediate starters? Of course, Jordan Morgan's going to start. He'll probably start at left tackle. But you even heard it when we were showing the video. They're like, he can play tackle, he can play guard. Does that mean he can play both? We're not sure. Are there about 3 starters, maybe 4? So you got Morgan, Cooper, Bullard, maybe Hopper starting day 1. But then you've got a new defense completely. Jeff Hafley comes from BC. He's coming on over, figuring out what's going on there. And there's a lot of these players that are like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a new defensive coordinator. So I'm ready to see. I want Brian Gutekunst to prove me wrong, but I'm curious because sometimes too much versatility means not enough specialists. I'm not sure.
The Packers almost never draft offensive linemen in the first round. They did it here with Jordan Morgan. They got a guy in Edgerrin Cooper in the second round who there were various questions about him, but talent-wise, he might be the best off-the-ball linebacker in this draft. A name we didn't even have on the screen, Marshawn Lloyd, the running back from USC, who some people within the league believed was the best running back in this class. You know, add him to a room that's got Josh Jacobs. They brought back A.J. Dillon, Marshawn Lynch on top of it. We talk so much about Jordan Love. The real story of the Packers is Matt LaFleur loves to run the football. That's the tone setter. They want to be balanced. They've got the opportunity to do that with what might be the deepest running back room in the league, Patrick.
Okay, so wrapping up the NFC North, we're almost at a 4.0 here. This could be 4 teams contending for playoff spots. Why not? Why not? NFC North. Those are the draft grades presented by Lexus. Of course, using that aggression to try to catch the 2 top teams in the division. Both made runs in the playoffs. Let's start with the Detroit Lions. David, what's the grade?
I'm going to go solid B+ because I look at it from a quarterback's perspective. When you look at the Detroit Lions, the one thing that they were lacking or something that you could take advantage of as a quarterback is their secondary. And they identified that, and they took 2 corners, 2 defensive backs. I would argue that they took the top back. And so I think that that's fantastic. So, but then I said, you know what? What they did at the draft to get Detroit so hyped for our draft, to bring almost 1 million people out there, Dan Campbell and what the Detroit Lions have done with this, I'm going to give them an A. All right, so I bumped it from a B+. All right, I've changed it and given it an A- just because of the hype. They did a great job.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was really special. Clearly, I'm from the state of Michigan, so it meant the world to me. I'm with you on that. But just based on their draft class, I'm giving them an A-. I loved the 2 corners back-to-back, doubling down on the same position, especially when you gave up the most passing touchdowns in the National Football League last season, is a really smart strategy. I also thought it was interesting that they went offensive tackle, and then they got this kind of like interesting player that he's the running back / safety in Vaki, and that's going to be interesting to see how they use him. Remember, we've seen them do some trick things with their linebackers playing on offense, etc. And then, of course, they rounded it out addressing guard with their last pick, which was a 6th-rounder, Christian Mahogany. They needed a guard. Now they can rotate in. You've got to ensure that your O-line, one of the best last season, is now one of the best this season as well.
I was down in Tuscaloosa for the Alabama Pro Day, got to interview Terrion Arnold, along with Kool-Aid McKinstry, did the 2 of them at the same time. Terrion Arnold's personality is so infectious. And every GM, every coach I talked to who had him in for a 30 visit said just, this guy's unbelievable. You take that personality, put it into the Lions locker room where they've got this unique juju going right now. He is a perfect fit. He showed it when he grabbed that microphone from Kaylee Hartung and announced to the crowd, I'm home, I'm home. That's not affected. That is authentic. Just like Dan Campbell, that coaching staff, very authentic people. They had a big need at the cornerback spot. They made the trade for a veteran early on in free agency. Now they bring in Terrion Arnold. It's not quite the Sauce versus Stingley of a couple of years ago here, but Quinyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold, their careers will always be tied together. These top 2, who made the right decision, who got the best player, it'll be fun to watch.
So, David, let's start with the team that picked number 1 overall, the Chicago Bears. Grade the Bears, David.
I just got really nervous. Like Cynthia put the glasses on. I never had a good experience with the grade. So but I'll give the Chicago Bears an A because I just think they nailed the first 10, right? You get a receiver and your quarterback, and already on top of that, you had a really good unit to pair them with. So Keenan Allen, obviously DJ Moore, and adding Roman Dunze with Caleb Williams. I mean, you're just setting this kid up for success. So my only hope is that Shane Waldron can make sure that these guys are pointed in the right direction, because if you can figure this thing out, you guys get them going and playing efficient football. They have all the pieces. So I can't think of a time where I've seen a 1st-round pick or even the top overall pick for sure walk into a situation like this. I'm really happy for Caleb. I think it's going to be fantastic.
I absolutely agree. I've got my glasses on here. That's how you know the grades are very official. I'm looking at what the Bears did, and the cool part is they have now been able to plan for Caleb Williams for a long time, basically since they made the decision, probably around the combine. So that's really interesting. And free agency thus could be really structured around what serves him best. Remember, Ryan Poles himself was an offensive lineman. So I think that you're getting a tackle from Yale like later on that we don't know a ton about, but he probably has a little extra insight given his own experience in that area. And the fact that you got Rome Odunze as well, you get one of the big 3 in the 9th pick. You are doing great. And anytime you draft a guy that uses his feet to make contact with the ball, it's always going to be pretty fun too, because you got to get a punter in there somehow.
Caleb Williams, his team, his dad have gone about this pre-draft process, like everything in his football career, in their own unique way. So they were in a position as the clear number 1 pick where they could really look for things and have blunt conversations with potential teams, namely the Bears, who are holding the number 1 pick, about what they wanted. Investment and infrastructure to allow Caleb Williams to move forward and have the opportunity to chase Tom Brady like he wants to do. That was going to be critical. This draft was a continuation of everything that we've seen the Bears do throughout the course of this offseason. It has all been with a singular focus. How do we put Caleb Williams and this team in the best position to succeed? So you go all the way back to when they signed DeAndre Swift and they traded for Keenan Allen. Now you get him another weapon in Rome Odunze. It's hard to see and to look at this Bears team and not say, this might be the most improved team on paper in the NFL. Will that translate from paper to the field? We'll find out in September.